Hello and welcome to another edition of Strategic Gaming. I'm your friendly neighborhood nerd king, Mac Taylor, here to talk to you about Survivor Island of the Idols. Now, I know I haven't really posted videos about this in a minute. It's been kind of crazy trying to catch everything up and get where I really need to be here moving forward. So, without further ado, let's go ahead. I'm excited to talk about this. So, in this season, the big twist is that on the Island of Idols, we have not immunity idols, that there are some immunity idols, but we get Rob and Sandra, two of the most prolific players in the history of the game. Sandra, the only person to have won the game twice, and Boston Rob, the person who's played the most, coming up, will have played the most of any other person in Survivor history. And they're not going to be playing, they will be coaches. They'll be kind of giving lessons to these Survivor players, but not in the shades of BB14. They will not have a chance to enter the game. So we got two tribes starting off here in the Island of the Idols. We have Vokai, the purple tribe, which consists of Jack, Lauren, Kelly, Nora, Jason, Tommy, Jamal, Molly, Dan, and Janet. Then we have the Lyro tribe, which consists of Tom, Vince, Elizabeth, Aaron, Ronnie, Missy, Karishma, Elaine, Chelsea, and Dean. And right off the bat, we don't get the traditional marooning that we get in a lot of Survivor seasons where, Jeff meets them and says, this is what this season is. You are these things, they are these things. David and Goliath, for example. And he's like, you are the Davids. You have overcome obstacles, and you are the Goliaths. You take over everything you run. And none of that. They're just on the beach and kind of going. So it's a little odd for them. And then they're like, Island of the Idols. The hell does that mean? Is there immunity idols all over this place? What is this? What's going on? Are we being punked? We don't know. And we know that on the Lyro tribe, there are two athletes. There is Elizabeth, who is an Olympic swimmer, and Tom, who is a former hockey player, but much older. He's kind of the older guy the season. And Missy, her story is that she was in the Air Force on the basketball team, and she got a brain tumor to where she wasn't able to speak or walk, and she had to kind of learn how to do all that again. And now this is kind of like her adventure, and she has a lease on life where she appreciates things more because of what she's went through. And it's all very touching. It is awesome that she was able to overcome such a tragedy and now be on Survivor. I really do think that is amazing. So, and Janet, she's the older woman of the season. And she's like a lifeguard trainer. And she wants to avoid the older woman stereotype of going out early because of not being useful. So, she ends up getting a fire going without flint, just using bamboo. And, her tribe's like, wow, she's awesome. And Janet really is awesome. Janet is a badass. I love Janet so far, up to episode 5, which we'll talk about in the next podcast. Absolutely love Janet. So get ready for me to talk a lot about Janet throughout this part. And Vince, on the other tribe, he is the first survivor to be of Hmong descent. And he's not the most in shape guy, but he's very good at chopping things and doing his work share. He's good with tools. And they weren't expecting him. Nobody was really expecting him to be good with that stuff. So right off the bat, we're having a lot of people breaking maybe Survivor stereotypes. And then we meet Elaine, who is a factory worker, and she likes to joke around. She's very likable. Everybody sees how likable she really is. And her, Tom, and Vince, they're kind of off on their own, kind of, vibing up because they're kind of the workhorses. And Ronnie and Aaron are like, hey, those three are off by themselves. That is, we should target them. It should be an easy vote if we lose. Which, I mean, that's the exact same thing we saw last season, Edge of Extinction, with Wendy, Keith, and Reem. I had to think of who the first boot was. Where they got isolated very quickly because they were off on their own. And it just really goes with Survivor. You cannot go off on your own or off in a group for too long because other people will try to make that, because the first vote is very hard, and anything you can do to make that easier on them, they will take that opportunity to utilize. So Ronnie and Aaron are both very smart to do that. And on the Vokai side of it, Jason actually decides to go looking for an idol, which, if we've learned anything from these seasons of Survivor, do not look for the idol on day one. It's like Tony Vlachos in Game Changers when he just ran to look for an idol immediately when they hit the beach. You look like a fool. But Jason does, and everybody. Dan's like, I noticed that Jason was gone, and I decided that I needed to use that against him. When really, Molly is the one that pointed it out, and at least in the edit, Molly was the one first who went, hey, Jason's been gone a while. And Dan's like, oh, yeah. And then he goes around and, wow, Jason must be gone for a while. Like, Dan, you asshole. Like, you were not the one. Don't act like you mastermind that. According to the edit, you did not. And Dan talks about, as a talent manager, I have to get actors to do what I need them to do. And so I'll be able to use those skills out here with these people. And I did, in my cast assessment, say that would be, as a talent manager, he does have to have good personable skills. But we'll talk about it in a minute. Dan is not the best at boundaries. So we'll talk about that, I guess, in a minute. And then Jack, Jack looks like, your Joey Amazing or your Ozzy or your Malcolm. He's kind of that archetype, like I said in the cast assessment. He really has not let me down. But he seems like a much younger. Like, Ozzy always had this kind of hardness to him, even though he had like a boy adventurer kind of nature. Whereas, like, Joey Amazing definitely had a charm, but, like, it's like Joey Amazing's little brother. Like, Jack just seems so innocent in it all, really, But, he's finding a clam and talking about, like, man, this is so cool being out here on Survivor. So I do like Jack a lot. It's just he falls into, like, this. It really does. It looks like Joe's little brother. And then Jack, Jamal, and Tommy kind of bonding as bros. And Tommy, he's a 4th grade teacher. And in my cast assessment, I was like, oh man, Tommy may be the guy they target because of personable skills. And no, Tommy is in a great spot. He is just using his conversation and his people skills to, really win everybody. Everybody loves Tommy. And at least up until Merge, he's good. I don't think he's going anywhere. So him, Jack, and Jamal, they're kind of together. And then also Kelly, Molly, and Dan are kind of in on that. So it seems that Tommy's going to be in the majority. And Nora tells Jason, hey, they were talking about you looking for an idol. And I feel... She says, Nora throws me for a loop, man. Because she says, oh, you remind me of a former boyfriend I had that I trust. And I'm like, what? I'm sorry, but if anyone reminds me of my ex on the island, I'm not going to trust them. Because they are my ex for a reason. Like, it's such a weird statement, but Nora's a trippy chick, man. I enjoy Nora for television's sake. And so Elaine on the Lyra tribe, she's cracking jokes, and really just bonding with this group so seamlessly. And Missy wants an all-girls alliance, so she kind of gets the girls of the tribe together. I'm like, hey, we need to use like a Vince or somebody and like get the guys' numbers down. And then she tells Elaine, hey, Ronnie and Aaron did talk about targeting you because you and Vince and Tom were on your own or whatever. So Elaine's like, Elaine panics very quickly. And she's like, oh man, if I hear my name, that's not good. And she kind of almost has like a little bit of a she just gets very sad that her name is already out there. I mean, that's how Survivor nowadays. It wasn't like the first gen Survivor where things were gradual, and as long as you pulled your weight, you could at least make the first 4 votes or so without any trouble. But here it moves so fast, and there are so many variables that it could literally get pulled out right from under you and you not know. So then we get Dan. Dan is a very handsy guy. He likes to massage people and lay on them, and he's very free. Kelly is a germaphobe, which honestly, being a germaphobe Survivor is not the best choice because you're really close in the corridors with people, and it's not the best idea to be on Survivor, but I get it. A dream's a dream. And so Dan's a little too much for her, and the other girls too, like Molly, says that it's very uncomfortable for her as well. So Kelly kind of calls him out on it, like, hey, it's very uncomfortable for me. And he's like, hey, I'm not trying to make anybody uncomfortable. Like, he handles it well. I thought he would get a little defensive, like, well, I'm not meaning it like that. But no, he's like, hey, I'm sorry. I did not know that you felt that way, but now that I do, I will do my best to avoid that kind of interaction. So I'm glad that Dan handled that so well. It makes him look better. It still doesn't put him in the best light, but I think really does help mend those fences. So that was very good on Dan at interacting like that. Not only for the game state, but you should definitely not be touching people this early and stuff like that. Like, only touch who want to be touched. So I'm glad that he handled that like that. It made me enjoy Dan as a person. So Ronnie is observing Elaine, and he's like, man, she's a social threat. She's got to go. I got to get her out. I'm a poker player. I see this all the time. This has got to go. And Ronnie kind of talks to Elaine like, hey, I'll let you know if your name's on the table, blah, blah, blah. And Elaine's like, I got a bad feeling about this guy. I knew we were different people, and he's sneaky, and I got to get him out of here. And if you hear any shuffling around, my dogs are always at play when I podcast, so you may hear dog noises. So we get this like obstacle course leading into a puzzle immunity. And Jack looks very good with the strength in this immunity. Vokai wins immunity here. And Flint, I believe. And they must send somebody to the Island of the Idols. And they decide to send Elizabeth to the Island of the Idols. Now, I know that sometimes the Island of Idols is spread out through the episode, like segments. But I'm going to talk about it all in a chunk. Because, for editing's sake, I'm talking about it in a chunk. So, she gets to the Island of the Idols, and there are 2 huge wooden statues of Rob and Sandra. Which, if you're Rob and Sandra, that has to be a little weird. That you're living by a huge statue of you. Kind of weird. Cool, but weird at the same time. And they come out, and she's like, oh my god, it's Rob and Sandra. And I know there's got to be a few of these people who don't, like, I know not everybody here has dreamt of being on Survivor Forever. Some of these people are probably recruits, so I feel like they just told them, like, hey, that's Rob and Sandra. Just walk up and go, oh, Rob and Sandra. Because I know not everybody knows who Boss and Rob and Sandra are. I feel like not everybody, like, you know what I mean? If you've watched Survivor for an amount of time, you probably know. But especially as of, like, the recent seasons, like, Sandra hasn't played since 34. And she wasn't a big part of that season. And Rob hasn't played since Redemption Island. So, I know they're talked about all the time, but like if they've started watching like Edge of Extinction or David vs. Goliath, they may not know who they are. So, again, I feel like some of that is a little showy. I think you can definitely tell who the fans of Rob and Sandra are by reaction. So, they go up and basically Rob starts teaching her how to start a fire. And he says, all right, if you can make a fire faster than me, I'll give you an idol that's used for a tribal council, one tribal council. Or you lose and you don't get to vote at the next tribal council. And she's like, deal. And they do the challenge, and Rob obviously beats her because he's got a few seasons on her. And he's like, in his confession, he's like, that was kind of a dumb thing for her to take that deal. She should have waited, see if the deal sweetened. Maybe if she just started a fire, I could have given her an idol. But that's what these young players, they're very bad at taking the time to assess the situation. And Rob is pretty hard on these players, but like really, Rob is a great, especially for this kind of stuff. Like Rob's a great teacher. Rob discusses the game in such a way that is just full of knowledge. And he should. I mean, he's got the most experience with it. So, she will not get a vote at the next tribal council. So, Lyra is discussing kind of who's going to go. And it seems like Ronnie and Vince are the names on the table. And Ronnie and Aaron talk to Vince about maybe we'll take out Elaine. But that just seems like a no-go. Like, Vince is like, oh, maybe. But he runs that information right to Elaine. And so Elaine now knows that her decision to go after Ronnie is a good decision. And we get a very emotional tribal council where Vince and Elaine are crying, talking about, to get here is such an emotional journey. It took some of us years and years of auditioning to get here. And to be taken out first would be just such a gut punch. And, I can't let that happen. I cannot go first. And Ronnie's like, hey. And Ronnie starts listing his resume. Like, he's like, I've done this, and I've done this, and I did this awesome thing, and I did this awesome thing, and I did this awesome thing. And so Survivor's another awesome thing that I want to do very well. And it just sounded like a douche. Like, Ronnie sounded like a douche. And so... And Rob asked Sandra, he said, was it this hard for you to vote somebody out? And she says, no, I vote you out and that's it. But that's the kind of play. And Rob and Sandra, though, they've done this 4 times. Well, Sandra's done it 3 times. Rob's done it 4 times. Voting people out is not hard at that point. But their first time, maybe not for Rob, but for Sandra, Rupert going was hard on her. Krista going was hard on her. She didn't have to write their names down, but still, it was a little more touch and go. Sandra has always been cutthroat, as is Rob. But I feel like they've become more hardened by how many times they've done this. And so, we get a vote of 6-3 because Elizabeth couldn't vote. Ronnie voted out. First one out, Ronnie Barda. Final thoughts on Ronnie. He was way too cocky. He came in this game thinking, dude, this is going to be simple. I'm going to run the table, and just got his ass knocked out by a factory worker and admissions counselor. So, Ronnie, I think, got a reality check here. Normally, I think his archetype would go a little farther, but he overestimated himself. And because of that, it was kind of nice to see his downfall here in the first episode. Hey, what's going on, Nerd Nation? Don't forget that if you want to, go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We got plenty of stuff coming your way, whether it be for Survivor, Big Brother, and other game shows like that. We're going to be doing television show reviews, movie reviews, and also some short films from MacPack Studios to be heading your way. Can't wait to see you guys there. Don't forget to leave comments, and I want to keep having conversations about Survivor with you. Again, I'm Mac Taylor. We're going to see you guys next time.